Houston, can you talk about the New Madrid fault zone? I know it's overdue as well. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy birthday. Talking about New Madrid. We talked about it a couple of times here. Okay, now we gotta leave this area. We gotta go to the weird fault in the middle of the country. New Madrid fault. Which is alongside the Mississippi River. In this area. Let's see if we can just do New Madrid fault. Fault line, New Madrid Township. Here we go. Take me there. There it is. Right down near that little hooky doo in Missouri. The New Madrid fault, somewhere in here. It's been run over with tractors so many times that you can't actually see it. Not like you can, like in Turkey, you can see the actual fault line. You also see that there's a whole bunch of oxbows here. It's an old oxbow from the river right there. So we talked about oxbow. Oh, you guys can't see anything because I don't have the map up. Nope. There we go. All right. Sorry. Zoom back out so you can see where we are. And, oh. That's right by that actual oxbow we were looking at earlier. Was that weird? That's so weird. This is the literal land we were just looking at. Right next to the Madrid fault. That's so weird. This is where Julianne sent us earlier. Julianne sent us here, right? Make sure I'm. Yeah, Julianne. Julianne she sent us to this oxbow right here. This exact oxbow. And right next to it is the New Madrid fault. Crazy. That's so. What are the odds, man? Probably because someone saw the New Madrid there and then put it. Okay, that's probably what happened. All right. But anyway, New Madrid fault is an ancient fault. It last triggered in the 1815 was the big New Madrid quake. Shoot, let me look it up. New Madrid quake. 1811. 1811, 1812 Madrid earthquakes. So this was the frontier back then. This was like super frontier, early settlers, untamed land according to the early settlers, even though there are thousands of people already living here because they've been here for thousands of years. And, people said the earthquake was like 10.0. No, it wasn't. It was probably like 8, maybe 8.5 at the most. It did ring the church bells in Boston, which is pretty crazy. And the Mississippi River ended up flowing backwards because of the uplift that happened, and opened up all sorts of ruptures, and all these artisanal wells popped up and flooded a whole bunch of early farm fields, and a lot of settlers died. They died from the flooding. They died from their little log cabins collapsing on them. And when the next wave of settlers came out in like the 1830s, when and into the Civil War, as people moved west for the gold rush, they found abandoned communities because all the farmers died in the earthquake from flooding and from their buildings collapsing. They're like, that's weird. We've got a foundation for a house. We'll just use all this timber and we'll build a house. And a lot of that happened. The fault itself is a strike slip fault. I can't remember the exact fault formation. Yeah, so December 16th, 1811, it had anywhere from a 7.2 to an 8.2. December 16th, 1811, the aftershock was about 7.4 in around the same area. And then a couple weeks later, January 23rd, 1812, another 7 to 8.0 hit. Pretty close to that area. And then in February 7th, a third one that was between a 7 and 8.6 hit. So basically, these guys got 4 earthquakes of 7.5 to 8.5, one after another every couple of weeks. That would be enough to be like, fuck this place. I'm leaving. So, peace. And many aftershocks, including 1 magnitude 7, and another aftershock on a 12. So they had 6 earthquakes, 7 or above between December 16th and February 7th. Dang. Holy cow. John Bradbury, a fellow of the Linnean Society, was on the Mississippi the night of December 15th, 1811, describes the tremors in great deal. After supper, we went to sleep as usual. About 10 o'clock in the night, I was awakened by the most tremendous noise, accompanied by an agitation of the boat so violent that it appeared danger of upsetting. I could distinctly see the river as agitated by storm, and although the noise was inconceivably loud and terrific, I could distinctly hear the crash of fallen trees, the screaming of the wild fowl on the river, but found that the boat was still safe in her moorings. By the time we could get to our fire, which was on a large flag on the stem of the boat, the shock had ceased, but immediately the perpendicular banks both above and below us began to fall into the river in such vast masses as to nearly sink our boat by the swell they occasioned. At daylight, we had counted 27 shocks. So basically, it just kept moving all night long. Oh, the way they write back then. This one is from Eliza Byron. On December 16th, December 1811, about 2 o'clock a.m., we were visited by a violent shock of an earthquake, accompanied by a very awful noise resembling loud but distant thunder, but more hoarse and vibrating, which was followed in a few minutes by the complete saturation of the atmosphere with sulphurous vapor, causing total darkness, and the screams of affrighted inhabitants running to and fro, not knowing where to go or what to do, the cries of the fowls and the beasts of every species, the cracking of the trees falling, and the roaring of the Mississippi, the current of which was retrograde for a few minutes owing to an interruption in its bed formed by a scene truly horrible. Yeah, pretty awesome. Yeah, so geological setting. What type of fault are you? You are a real foot rift. Okay. All right. So this is a real foot rift is the result of spreading. So if we can look at the map, go back. Okay, so actually this looks, that might be a channel there. I thought that might be fault. If you look at the United States, right? You've got a big continent that's moving to the west. So the spreading ridge is happening way out yonder in the middle of the ocean. This conveyor belt of magma that comes up, and it just moves at a few inches a year. It's moving the entire continent west about 3 inches a year. There was a period, and it may have coincided with when India slapped into Asia, went shpong, 42, 43 million years ago, that forced the Pacific to kind of push under North America at a faster rate. And so we had a bunch of weird volcanism that happened. A bunch of volcanoes in Nevada, in Arizona, weird volcanism happening out in the Mojave Desert. So basically the Pacific Plate was pushing underneath California at the time. Now the Pacific Plate is sliding next to it, so we don't have all those volcanoes turned off. We had a whole bunch of volcanism all through the Mojave Desert and Sonoran Desert that we don't have anymore. Now, if the rates at which North America is being pushed have some changes involved, meaning the rift zone on one side is spreading faster than the Pacific Plate is diving underneath, or vice versa, you can sort of get the stretching of the North American plate. And we did have a rift zone form basically from Canada down through Minnesota, and it tried, I don't know, around 50, 60 million years ago to rip apart North America. And we had these crazy flood basalts happen in Minnesota that have since been covered by trees. And this rift, this pulling apart of that land, causes the land that's there to kind of slump in. It happens all the time out here in the Basin and Range in Nevada. I may have to draw a picture to be able to show what this one is like. One sec. I have to go to there. New. That's what I want. Okay. We're gonna do picture drawing. So turn you off. Chrome's off. Paint is on. Okay. So if we're looking at brushes, there. Bam. Make it nice and thick. Okay. So if we're looking at like, the land's kind of got some hurtly burblies and little hills and whatnot. If the land starts spreading apart, right? And it starts to like move apart because it's getting basically tugged on one side, or if the land's all moving, but one side's moving faster than the other, it'll kind of fracture apart. And what happens is that there are chunks that will fall into the spaces that form from these fault zones that happen. And so you'll get sort of, if you imagine these are all a bunch of blocks that are standing upright, right? And these blocks are all standing upright, and it starts to spread apart, you will get chunks that kind of fall and tilt. So in Nevada, it starts spreading apart, and you get these little gaps between these different blocks, and the blocks sort of end up falling on their side, doing this all across Nevada. And so what you have is you've got your basin and your range. And you can look at the mountains themselves in Nevada, and you'll see like one side, it kind of looks like homogeneous rock on one side because this was the floor at one time. And then on the other side, you have always these layers of rock. And it's kind of a long sloping side and a steep side across this entire state. So here, if you look at the rocks closely, you'll end up seeing layers. Can we see some of them here? Yeah, I can see some of them here. Not the best resolution, but you have different layers of rock, different colors, because the block end up slumping and tilting to the side. And then on the other side, the rock ends up being fairly homogeneous over here. There's some good layers right there. No, sorry. There's the layers at the top. Here's some good ones. It's like basalt right there. And you'll have kind of a homogeneous layer, and then whatever. With the New Madrid fault, if we go back, oh, you guys can't see. I did not put the Google Earth back on. Damn it, I forgot to do that. Okay, sorry. So here we're in Nevada. We're in Nevada. Got basin and range, and these blocks tilt and fall, and you can see the cliff line here on this easterly edge. This is sort of this peak, and then that's the top of it is this whole side, and the side where you get the layers is all the stuff on the back here. It's more gradual slope from the west as these guys, the layers of rock are, and then a steep side on what was the ground that got tilted and knocked in. And go back to the paint here. So with New Madrid fault is the land split apart, but it's just one zone, and the land rifted apart, and the land itself looks kind of level, but the blocks of rock sort of fell down and got filled by like river water and stuff. So the blocks just do this weird thing like this, and then everything else is regular land. And so the fault zone in New Madrid, this is all like rich soil that's been dumped by the river in here. So the land looks like it's flat across, but then if you dig down deep, you can find these blocks of rock. So as this thing spreads apart, more blocks will fall in. So this block will fall in eventually, and this block will fall in, and this block will fall in. And then you'd get a flood from the river, and it'd fill it with sediment again. And so this rift zone, we're looking like up the rift zone. This whole thing would extend in a long way underneath the ground. Gotta go all the way back to the New Madrid fault. Gotta zoom out. Go back in here. So the rift zone is probably a pretty large section of this entire valley here, where what are you doing? What do you think you're doing? Where the continent tried to rip itself apart at one time, and the continent's still moving. It's still moving across the ocean. It's weird to have earthquake zones that aren't where there's active mountain building, but this is one of those places. Just like the rift zone in Africa. Like Like why is the condensite rip itself apart here? Because it is. The other big earthquake we had around this time was the Charleston earthquake, which, for the most part, mountain building is pretty much done on the East Coast. It's complete. There's not really much need to build mountains anymore because it's not smashing into anything. It's all erosion. But that erosion does cause rebound of the soil, which can make for some rumblies. But the Charleston earthquake was huge for this sedimentary flat. Look at the size of the continental shelf out here. It's just gigantic. It should be just erosions, but you still can get freak earthquakes in places where you don't expect it. And this rift zone is definitely one of them. And man, my voice. BW brand SLND went from $8 to $2,000 yesterday. That's the one. Thank you. Yeah, weird stuff going on, and I don't know if it was a fluke or if that's the price that thing did, but man, $2,000 just bonkers, just absolutely bonkers. Okay. Did that work for you? Talking about New Madrid fault? Hope it did. Who was asking that one? I forgot already. Where was I? Stephen Lewis. There you go, Stephen Lewis. Does that help? I talked a lot about different types of faults in there, but hopefully you got the idea. And it's great that both those spots are next to each other. That cool oxbow that's forming and the New Madrid fault.